Patrick is one of the world's most loved patron saints, yet so much of his life is still a mystery. Who was St. Patrick? Where did he come from? Why did he have such a mission and a heart for Ireland? And where are the places we can still connect with him today? I'm going on a journey to explore the answers to these questions and walk in St. Patrick's footsteps around the beautiful counties of Armagh and Down, where so much of his ministry in Ireland took place. This is a spiritual journey, so let's push back the veil of centuries and discover the real St. Patrick. From his landing place at the Slaney River, St. Patrick founded his first church in a barn at a settlement nearby. It was from here that he began his mission to bring the light of Christianity to Ireland, as the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, told me. What is St. Patrick's legacy for us today?
I think it's hugely important because he was the person through whom God worked to keep the church alive through the medieval period, what we call the Dark Ages. Patrick was the foundation of Celtic Christianity, of this great renewal after the fall of the Roman Empire.
And of course, Archbishop, we're standing at Saul Church this morning, the site of St. Patrick's very first church in Ireland. And a lot of people say that this is still a very spiritual place. What do you think?
It's certainly what people often call a thin place. And I think it's also a place that invites you to look outwards. I mean, you can see why he built a church here on the top of a hill, looking out over the countryside, a reminder that as Christians, we are sent by Jesus Christ into the world, not to huddle together in a sort of defensive and miserableist clump, but to go out into the world as he did. And his world was a dark world, and to transform the world around us.
Archbishop, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Jen.
St. Patrick's relationship with Ireland was forged many years before his return as an apostle. When he was just 16, Irish pirates kidnapped him from his homeland and brought him as a slave to herd sheep on the slopes of Mount Slemish in County Antrim.
There is a very ancient tradition that this is the place where St. Patrick was held as a slave when Irish pirates had taken him captive from his home. Patrick tells us the story in his writings that one day Irish pirates attacked his father's house. We're not sure where that was. Some say in Britain, others that it was in Brittany. But Patrick was taken captive, he was abducted and brought here to Ireland, where he served as a slave for 7 years, from the age of 16 to 23. We're told by later tradition that his slave master was a Druid, Miliuk, and that this whole area was very strong with the pre-Christian Druidic traditions, and that's the world that Patrick entered into as a young slave. It's when he'd lost everything that he tells us that he found God, and he started to pray. He prayed during the day and he prayed during the night, and one night a voice in his dreams, perhaps in his prayers, said to him, "Patrick, it is time for you to return to your homeland." Patrick took this as a cue to leave, and he said he left almost immediately from captivity. He walked 200 miles to the coast where there was a ship waiting for him, and that ship presumably took him home. After 7 years of slavery, when he'd finally managed to get back home, reunited with members of his extended family, another voice spoke to him, and Patrick describes how he heard the voice of the Irish calling to him through that dream to return to Ireland, this time not as a slave to men, but as a slave to God. And many years later, he did return to become Ireland's famous apostle.
From a life of slavery on Slemish, Patrick would eventually set up his base here at Saul. Today's beautiful church is a sacred pilgrimage destination for those who want to connect with the sense of faith, courage and deep spirituality that formed Patrick's life. But it's not just the inside of this church that's fascinating. The grounds open another window of medieval history. Dean Henry Hull was my guide. I'm thinking specifically about this wall. Dean, can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes, this wall is part, in fact it's all that remains of the medieval abbey that was here. There have been a couple of different abbeys, but there was a 13th century abbey which was destroyed by Edward the Bruce, and this wall is all that remains of it.
And I have to ask, what is this rather interesting little building down in the middle of the graveyard?
This is a fascinating building. There have been many different theories as to what it is. Some have thought it might have been a monk's cell in the grounds of the abbey. One person thought it might even have been a reliquary which was inside the abbey building. And a more recent theory is that it's actually a medieval tourist attraction. It was built as St. Patrick's house, so that when pilgrims came to Saul to see where St. Patrick lived, this was a little house that they could look at.
From Saul Church, so many of the sacred sites connected to St. Patrick are only a short distance away. The majestic Sleeve Patrick with its imposing statue, the monastic site of Inch Abbey, Stroll Wells where St. Patrick bathed in the waters and sang psalms, and of course Down Cathedral where he is buried. But this is only the beginning of the story. From Down we now travel to Armagh along a section of the spectacular St. Patrick's Trail. This driving route is lined with a host of sites connected to St. Patrick's life and legacy. Armagh has been the ecclesiastical capital of Ireland since the 5th century when St. Patrick founded his church here. But from the dawn of its known history, it has been a place where people have searched for something greater than themselves. Today in the city, there are 2 cathedrals named after St. Patrick, one Church of Ireland, one Roman Catholic.
Well, it's a tremendous honour for me to be Archbishop of Armagh. When I was growing up, I always knew how special this place was. And I think that for people today, to read about St. Patrick and realise that he was just an ordinary person with all his weaknesses, with all his sinfulness, and yet he really felt that God was calling him. So for me to be here in Armagh, in this great cathedral, and to realise that I'm following in the footsteps of St. Patrick, it's very special indeed.
The Roman Catholic Cathedral is filled with symbols and references to St. Patrick.
As you come in through the front door and you walk up the aisle, you'll see the imposing Great East window. And if you look underneath the crucifixion, you have 2 vignettes, one on the left and one on the right. Now the one on the left is St. Patrick holding up the shamrock, which he used to convert the pagans, it's alleged anyway. He used the shamrock because of the 3 leaves within the one shamrock to represent the Blessed Trinity, 3 persons, but only one God.
Just across the hill, the Church of Ireland Cathedral stands on the site where St. Patrick founded his first stone church in Ireland.
In terms of this cathedral, remember that this is a church that has been here for a long time, but there has been a church here for over 1,000 years. And you get the sense of history and of spirituality of the Irish church that goes back to the very earliest times.
A tour of St. Patrick's Church of Ireland Cathedral takes us through a portal in time. Built on Ard Macha, the hill of Macha, which gives Armagh its name, this site was given to St. Patrick in the middle of the 5th century by a local chieftain.
We have a wonderful stained glass window of St. Patrick, and it shows Patrick in many different guises, but particularly a wonderful section where he stood by the seashore with the 3 relics that were associated with him. That's the book of Armagh, the famous staff of Jesus that Patrick is said to have carried with him to Ireland, and the bell, the famous bell of St. Patrick. So these are priceless treasures of the Irish tradition and of the Celtic tradition.
Armagh Public Library is next door to the Church of Ireland Cathedral, and it's the oldest library in Northern Ireland, founded in 1771 by Archbishop Richard Robinson. It's packed with rare and valuable books, as well as ancient Irish artefacts, gems and coins. It also contains a copy of the Book of Armagh, dating back to the 9th century. This manuscript includes valuable texts by the scribes Mirku and Tircan, revealing much of what we know about St. Patrick's life. The city also boasts one of Ireland's oldest museums. Armagh County Museum is set in the city's beautiful Georgian tree-lined mall, with collections telling centuries of stories about the people who lived here. But as well as being a place of learning and Christian significance for 1,500 years, this area was critically important in the ancient world. Navan Fort, just outside the city, is one of Ireland's most famous and important archaeological sites. What exactly are we standing on here, Patrick?
This is Navan Fort. It's a prehistoric site. It was the ancient capital of Ulster, of the Ullad at Evin Macha. For St. Patrick, this was probably a royal site. It's one of the key ways to convert. If you can convert the king, you make life a lot easier for yourself. So he would have arrived here and tried to convert the king and the Druids who were here. Now, it dates to the Iron Age, so it's pre-Christian, okay? Centuries before St. Patrick. But at that time, this was probably a political centre, but it was also a religious centre. And in my opinion, it was an astronomical site.
And this astronomical dimension to Armagh is still very much in existence today, with the world-renowned observatory and planetarium.
This is a very unusual place. It's an observatory that was founded by an archbishop, namely Archbishop Robinson, towards the end of his life in 1789. And this is a period of time coming at the end of, if you like, the Age of Enlightenment, the watershed that separates a very much older view of the sky from the more modern scientific view. So Robinson lived through that period. And as an archbishop, he would have been interested not just in religion, but also in aspects that astronomers take for granted, like questions of existence, questions of how are we here, why are we here, what's the Earth's place in space, and so on. And coming out of that birth, if you like, of the observatory has flourished a vibrant and expanded and growing research institute where we've been at the frontiers ever since the foundation, right up to the present day.
Armagh is far more than just the ecclesiastical capital of Ireland. It is a place of learning, culture and history, and a visit here walking in the footsteps of St. Patrick is an unforgettable journey. Ireland has been associated with music for over 1,000 years, and Irish traditional music is loved around the world, but music here crosses all genres. In Northern Ireland, choral music is thriving, with some of the most spectacular venues in the world for choirs and indeed artists of all kinds to perform in. I caught up with John Anderson, a musician and choral director, to find out more. Why is Northern Ireland such a great destination for touring choral groups?
I think Northern Ireland is just a great destination, full stop. But if it's for touring choral groups, they experience two things. One is a wealth of places to actually sing. Choirs tour for one reason, and that is to sing in other places. I mean, they're not just going on to, I mean, the sightseeing is important, of course it is, and the history and the genealogy, that all comes into it. But they need places to sing. And I think we are particularly blessed here in Northern Ireland with venues, sacred and secular, that are just absolutely stunning to sing in.
And just thinking about Downpatrick Cathedral, John, why is it so special?
One of the unique aspects of Downpatrick Cathedral is that there is nowhere else in the world where, as singers or as a choir or as a religious group or a touring group or whatever, can you actually stand around the burial place of the saint and perform a simple hymn tune. In our case, the last time we sang there, we chose to sing the greatest of all Irish hymns, Be Thou My Vision. It was just a unique experience for all of us. The building itself, of course, I mean, it's a wonderful medieval building, recently refurbished, quite stunning looking now. And the acoustic in it is probably as good as you will get in a small European type of cathedral. And the organ in the building is just exceptionally good.
And the cathedrals in Armagh, John, why would groups and choirs want to come and perform there?
Both of the cathedrals that we're talking about in Armagh, they help the performer give of their best. In the Catholic Cathedral in Armagh, it's a huge space, a very beautiful space. And the thing for performers there is you can actually face directly towards the congregation, or if it's a concert, towards the audience. There is a massive acoustic in it. It's like a big European cathedral. And bear in mind that a lot of the music that many of the choral groups would be singing was written for that sort of beautiful stone building, reverberant acoustic. The Church of Ireland Cathedral, on the other hand, it's smaller, slightly more austere, but just I personally find the simplicity in it just breathtaking.
The cathedral's reputations as world-class venues have spread far and wide, and when international choir leaders visit to see for themselves, their verdict is the same.
The music comes alive in those types of acoustics in those churches. Every church that I've seen so far has just been amazing.
Northern Ireland's a beautiful country. We hope to bring many choirs here. We have done so in the past previously.
Looking forward to bringing a choir back just so we can have our little moment in that church and sing for ourselves and hear how we sound.
The acoustics in every church that I've been in are just phenomenal. As a choir director, I want to take it back with me.
Everybody wants a space that gives you something before you go in. You go into a cathedral like the two cathedrals in Armagh or in Belfast or in Downpatrick or whatever, and half the work is done for you. You've got an ambience before you even open your mouth to sing. These sort of things are what keeps the buildings alive. A building is bricks and mortar and beautiful decorations, but a building doesn't exist without people.
Outside Navan Fort, our pilgrim group gathers in a circle. This beautiful location is a place where myth and reality meet, and the beginning of our walk into the land of St. Patrick, known as St. Patrick's Way, the Pilgrim Walk.
Bless us now in our journey's beginning, and in our journey this day, and at our journey's end. On every pilgrimage there is an interior dimension where we enter what's called the tabernacle of the heart, and we have time for reflection on the places that we're moving through and seeing, and reflections on our own lives, the hopes and dreams that we carry with us as we walk together as a pilgrim community.
From Navan Fort, we journey through the wooded landscapes and lush Irish scenery towards the city of Armagh, its cathedrals and Christian heritage, making it the ecclesiastical capital of the island. Then walking along the Newry-Portadown Canal towpath through the city of Newry, we are on course for the mountains, navigating as we go the coast road beside Carlingford Lough, taking in the spectacular scenery of these Irish borderlands. From Newry, here we are in the Mourne Mountains and some of the most beautiful scenery in the world. We're going to walk along these mountain paths where St. Patrick would have trekked in his quest to convert Ireland to Christianity. And this is our reward for this part of the journey, Marcus. Absolutely beautiful.
It is, Jane, a great reward for the day's walking. We've climbed a little steeply, not too steeply, but we've climbed into a landscape steeped in legend and story and mythology from many generations. In some ways, we can think of this as a sacred landscape as we walk in the footsteps of St. Patrick, what some people call a thin place. And it's that place that's a liminal space, a liminal place where earth and heaven seem to meet.
It's an exhilarating experience to stand and just take in the view and prepare for our last journey on this pilgrimage to Slieve Patrick, St. Patrick's Mountain, a fitting conclusion to this sacred journey. So Marcus, we're on the last leg of our journey for today. We're walking up Slieve Patrick towards the imposing statue of St. Patrick, and just looking around, the Stations of the Cross are lighting our way.
Yes, Jane, we're invited as we move towards the climax of our pilgrimage journey to walk up this holy hill and follow in the footsteps, in a sense, of Jesus in Calvary, and Patrick also in this place. The local Catholic community have erected this wonderful devotional walkway, the Stations of the Cross, following the way of the cross. And as we walk up, we remember and we call to mind everything that St. Patrick has meant to us in his life, in his writings, and in his journey. We follow in his footsteps.
This last station of the cross and the towering statue of St. Patrick are the final breathtaking visual images for our pilgrim group. And looking down at the churches that dot the County Down landscape, we begin our descent towards some sustenance in the form of one of the most atmospheric pubs in Ireland, Paddy's Barn. A perfect end to an unforgettable pilgrimage through the lands that St. Patrick knew so well. Most of us have some experience of the festivals worldwide dedicated to St. Patrick and the many myths and legends associated with him. But it's right here in Armagh and Down that we can discover the real places and experiences that make him the world's most beloved patron saint. There is so much to explore here, and the landscape will transport you to a time of monastic devotion, ferocious Vikings, and the dying embers of pagan Ireland. This is a spiritual place and the foundation of a legacy that continues to touch the lives of people worldwide. A visit to the St. Patrick's Centre in Downpatrick is a perfect place to learn more.
The St. Patrick Centre is the only permanent exhibition in the world about St. Patrick. It's a charitable organisation which continues to bring people from all faiths and traditions together. But at the heart of what we do is to try and explain the story of St. Patrick. We have an IMAX presentation which flies you to all of the different parts of Ireland associated with St. Patrick. We have got an exhibition which is called Ego Patricius, and that means I Patrick. And in the exhibition it was very important for us to let people know the story of Patrick in his own words. Ego Patricius, Peccator Russicassimus. These are the first words of anyone who was able to read and write in Ireland. He gives us the start of our history, and he also is the dying breath of the Roman Empire in Britain and the northern part of France. The legacy of St. Patrick, often we think of as the 6.5 million people who actively get onto their feet every year to celebrate St. Patrick. On the 17th of March, I suppose people think of Patrick as snakes and shamrocks and green beer, but the legacy of Patrick is actually much deeper than that and rooted here in Downpatrick and Armagh in the northern part of Ireland. The legacy of Patrick is one of bringing people together. That's where he started his mission to Ireland when he came here to Downpatrick. So he continues to bring people together through his faith on the island of Ireland.
You can really feel St. Patrick's spirit in this area. His influence is everywhere, and a visit here will reveal all the places that helped to make him a legend. And of course, it's not just pilgrims that will find St. Patrick's story fascinating. Anyone with an interest in history, culture, and natural beauty will be overwhelmed by what Armagh and Down have to offer.